Welcome to Nordic Talks, Japan. Nordic Talks Japan is a series of dialogues between the Nordic countries and Japan, where we discuss how can we act to inspire and inspire to act in tackling the sustainable development goals set by the United Nations. I'm Niklas Karonen from Nordic Innovation House, and here to share a couple of housekeeping items on behalf of the organizers before we get started. Today's event is a hybrid event. We have audience here at our partner venue at University of Creativity. Thank you very much for having us again, as well as many of you joining us online. Today's discussion will be held in English. If you wish to follow the Japanese interpretation available online, please select the right language from the Zoom toolbar. And if you are at the venue with us, please grab a receiver from the reception. Today's program will last for about 90 minutes. We will have opening and closing remarks from Nordic ambassadors, and in between, a fascinating discussion on the role of design and sustainability in shaping our societies. But without any further ado, once again, on behalf of all the organizers, thank you very much for joining us. And for opening remarks, Ambassador from Denmark to Japan, Ambassador Taksøe-Jensen.
Thank you, Niklas. Konnichiwa. It's great to be back here at the University of Creativity. It's very special because you have to take off your shoes and everything. It's really cool here. And it's also great to kick off a new round of Nordic Talks. Nordic Talks, Japan strives to create a platform for exchange and dialogue to open doors for even closer social and economic relations between the Nordics and Japan. We are pleased to present a series of 4 themed events this year to introduce the different initiatives in the Nordic countries. I am honored to have the opportunity today to open a panel discussion here at the Nordic Talks. As Danish ambassador, I represent a country that has long been synonymous with innovation, creativity, and unwavering commitment to sustainability. Today we gather under the headline Design and Sustainability, a theme that not only encapsulates the essence of our heritage, but also speaks to the very core of our collective future. In the Nordic countries, design is not just an aesthetic pursuit. It's a way of life, a reflection of our values, and a commitment to harmonizing with nature. Our design ethos is an embodiment of simplicity, functionality, and timelessness, characteristics that are deeply embedded in our cultural DNA. But today I wish to delve deeper into the profound connection between Nordic design and sustainability, a bond that extends beyond more aesthetics to embrace our responsibility to the planet. Sustainable design is not a trend, it's a necessity. As we marvel at the sleek designs of Danish and Nordic design furniture or the elegance of Nordic architecture, it's crucial to recognize the careful choices made by our architects and by our designers. The Nordic design tradition appreciates holistic approaches. It also places a premium on materials that are not only visually appealing, but also environmentally friendly. Our designers are ambassadors of sustainable spirits, selecting materials that leave a minimal ecological footprint, fostering a harmonious relationship between form and function. Japan, a nation with its own profound design legacy, offers a distinct perspective. While Nordic design often leans towards minimalism, functionality, and an emphasis on natural materials, Japanese design embraces a poetic connection with nature, intricate detailing, and a harmonious coexistence of tradition and modernity. Designers from the Nordic countries and Japan have been inspiring and influencing one another over the years. And in recent years, both approaches share a common thread, a deep respect for the environment and a commitment to sustainable practices. The Nordic commitment to sustainability is not static. It is a dynamic force propelling us forward toward new innovative solutions. Our designers are at the forefront of pioneering materials, production processes, and technologies that redefine the boundaries of sustainable design. Whether it's recycling ocean plastics into furniture or harnessing renewable energy for manufacturing, Nordic design encapsulates a spirit of continual innovation in service of the environment. In the Nordic countries and Japan, the commitment to innovation is evident across various sectors, and this reflects a shared dedication to sustainable practices and a harmonious coexistence with the environment. These innovations serve as inspirations for global efforts to address pressing environmental challenges. Design is a powerful tool for cultural expression and communication. It has the potential to inspire change and shape perspectives. As we witness the global challenges posed by climate change, pollution, and resource depletion, Nordic design stands as a beacon of hope. It calls upon us to rethink our consumption patterns, embrace circular economies, and foster a collective responsibility for the planet we share. In my perspective, the creative fields of both the Nordic and Japan may serve as a platform for advocacy in shaping political dialogue and driving positive transformations. Therefore, I look very much forward to hearing the perspectives from our distinguished panelists here today, and I thank you all kindly for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Hello, everyone, again. I'm Hisashi Kai. I'm a freelance journalist working for Japanese magazine, usually based in Tokyo. And I'm going to be a moderator for the special discussion today. We have three guests, special guests from Sweden and Finland and from Japan. Before we started hot debate, maybe we try to introduce ourselves in brief, because three of you have a lot of projects, but not talking about your project. Maybe please start to talk about you and your studio, when you established the studio, how big it is, and what is main theme of the architecture project is. Maybe from next to me, Ulla.
Thank you. My name is Ola Rune, and I am a part of a trio called Claesson, Koivisto, Rune. We were founded right after university in 1994, which makes it 30 years ago since we started. We decided from the beginning that we would work not only with architecture, we also wanted to be designers. So we made it very difficult for ourselves, trying to achieve good works in the both fields. And I think now, after 30 years, making a few hundred projects, now we start getting there and being quite good.
Thank you. And as far as you do have a lot of projects in Japan. Like maybe you guys know, like K5 Hotel in Nihonbashi, and you have going on also the other Japanese project too.
Yeah, we have been traveling to Japan since 1993, so we have been here quite a few times. We have been fortunate to do a few projects here, and right now we have maybe even 3 projects to start working with in this fantastic country. We are 10 people in the studio, 11 right now. So we are small, but we are very good team.
Good. So next, Freya, you're from Helsinki, Finland, and from the team JKMM. And can you tell me about you and about JKMM as?
Yes, thank you, konbanwa, good evening. So my name is Freja Ståhlberg-Aalto, and I'm from JKMM Architects. And JKMM is a Helsinki-based office that was founded in 1998. And we have now grown into becoming an office of around 100 persons. And we do quite a wide range of different kinds of projects, so that we have, well, we do architectural design, interior design, we do furniture design, but also urban design and even art projects. Yeah.
Yes, and when I visited last time in Helsinki, you just done your quite new project, Amos Rex, the big new museum just next to the central station, and you have that kind of a lot of museum, public, like museum, library, public institution, like.
Yeah, right? Our projects include quite a lot of public buildings. So we have museums, as you said, but also libraries in different parts of Finland, but also quite a lot of other buildings as well. For example, offices and housing, and quite currently we have the House of Dance was completed last year, the first House of Dance in Finland.
Yes, and also this summer, you're gonna do like House of Sound.
Yes, the House of Sound was launched yesterday.
So you please check their website. There is new news from Finland. And thank you, Freja. And next, Joe-san from Schemata Architects. Actually, Schemata Architects designed this space, University of Creativity, and you have a lot of projects inland, like everywhere in Japan. And so please say something to the audience about you and the Schemata Architects.
そうですね。事務所の規模は25人ぐらいで、多分お二方と似てると思うんですけど、家具から建築、ちょっと街づくりに至るまでいろんなジャンル、いろんなスケールと、あとジャンルも本当様々で、住宅、ショップ、カフェ、あとはミュージアムとか学校とか、いろんな施設をさせていただいてます。
Yep, so the office size, we're about 25 people in terms of our resources. In a sense, I'm pretty similar to the two of the panelists that we have this evening. We do furniture, we also design architecture, we do city buildings, we do schools. So we have a very wide scale as well as genres in terms of we do residential, shopping facilities, cafes, museums, schools, and so on.
And as far as you as a Schemata Architect, you do a lot of a renovation project, I think, and you do also the public bath. That's quite unique project. You try to create something with the renovation. It's naturally come, or you try to follow that subject.
自然ですよね。分かんないですけど、本当にリノベーションのプロジェクト多いんですけど、でも意外に最近新築のプロジェクトが増えてきているっていうのも実態としてはあって、やっぱりこの間もちらっと話したように、日本の厳格なルールの上にある程度の規模のものを作ろうとするとリノベーションがしづらいっていうのが現状あって、どうしても最初はリノベーションやりたいねって始まるんですけど、新築になってしまうことがあります。
I think it's just the natural flow of things generally that has brought me along. Although I do get involved in a lot of renovation type projects. Recently, there are many new builds that I've been involved in as well. And based on the kind of very severe rules that we have in Japan, if you try to create something of a certain scale or size, based on a lot of those rules that we have here, then it's actually difficult to innovate. You begin with a desire to innovate, but it can be pretty challenging with the new builds.
Thank you. And today's theme, big theme, is about sustainability. We have to talk about that. But when I heard the word sustainable or sustainability, I can translate it in another word, like it's between human and nature and economics, politics, like a universe, daily life, and then what it's about. I get to check my note, sorry. Global, local, for example. It's a type of totally different thing, but it's in the word of sustainability. So I would like to ask you guys that how you translate that word sustainability in your word and why. Can you tell me? Maybe from Freya.
Well, yes, it's. I've been thinking actually that the word sustainability, it has been used a lot during the last 2 decades, and in a way it a little bit starts to lose its sense that we don't know what it means actually. So for me, sustainability is responsibility in a way. So we need to take responsibility for our actions and for our lifestyles, and then of course then as professional we need to take responsibility of how we design buildings and select materials and technical solutions. But then on a larger scale, of course, we have the city planning and that bigger scale. But so that was one point. Then for me, sustainability, it should also be joy. So because responsibility is quite a heavy burden to have. Right. So I think I would like sustainability to be joy of kind of changing lifestyles, for example, so that we love our sustainable lifestyle, and a joy of discovering new solutions that could be more sustainable and how we can change the world. So.
Yeah, thank you. And for example, last night you have a talk session in Finnish embassy, and you were talking about the happiness. And that is I think that is the main level to talk about the sustainability, as you talk about responsibility and the joy, because you have to be firstly conscious who you are and what is surrounding you and how you live there, and you take one step by step, or you choose this. It's your choice, and that is your responsibility and a joy, I think. Yeah.
Yes, like an ultimate goal is then to have happiness and a world where people feel good and safe, and also where the whole environment becomes a better place. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. How about you, Ulla? About the sustainability, the big word.
I think you summarized it quite well. I think if we are going to be really sustainability, we shouldn't do anything. We should just stop working as architects, because whenever we do something has to be used.
Right.
But to be serious, I think we should, as we heard, we need to be proud of what we do. We need to include everyone into our works, and trying to do them in so good quality in the materials and also in the quality of the, if it's a building or if it's a piece of furniture, that it can outlast us all in life. I would like to die before my furniture is stopped to be used. I want my buildings to overlive me. And if we can do that, and if the next generation can also use what we produce, then we as individuals, our little firm has done something.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear that if you want to follow like sustainability, you have to stop everything, like, or maybe you have to stop being like a human being. Yeah, you have to be like.
We have to become animals.
Yeah, exactly. You have
in real.
Yes, and go in the wildlife. But like the nature of human being is also like feeling and thinking, and you are also existent. You want to do something more. So,
as to be a creative person we have a conflict because we would like to change everything. Everything we see, if it's made in a bad way, it would be beautiful to change it, and I think we can do our part. We can show, we can lead the way of how things can be made. We can take inspiration from people that we think are doing the right thing, and together we can go forward. I don't know if I cannot change the world, but I can change my own part of the world.
Thank you. And Joe, well, you just talk about some project, renovation project, and there was some limit, and you all need to fight. And also, you can talk with this idea. You can talk about a little bit about sustainability by your word.
そうですね。さっき彼女が言ってた責任っていうのは本当にまず前提としてあるかなというふうに思ってます。
Yes, I think I go back to what Freya was saying a moment ago. I think the great premise is responsibility.
で、ただそれだけだと本当に重くなってしまうので、一つ新たなコンテクストとして捉えるように考えてます。
But I think responsibility alone is a very heavy burden, so I try to put that in the form of a new context.
で、そうやって考えると、今まで見えてなかった世界がこう見えてくるっていうことを感じていて、去年一つプロジェクトで、その CO2 の排出を数値化してみようって言って、プロジェクトで数値化しようと思ったんですね。そうすることによってどういうことが起こってくるのかっていうのを期待してなんですけど、なかなかどこの指標を取っていいのか、どの数値を拾っていいのかが、それすら決められなかったっていうことで、いろんな多分課題はたくさんあるなというふうに思ってます。
So I think by doing this, by putting it in that new context, many things which have been unseen as the world around us before become visible. I feel that is the case. So last year there was a project I was involved in where we wanted to try and measure the CO2 emissions of the project. We wanted to see how by doing that measurement, what would happen, what could we hope for from doing that measurement effort. But actually we weren't even able to get as far as to select what metrics we should track, what numbers we should look at. That was so we identified that there were many challenges.
And after his trial with the CO2 efficiency or to measure the CO2, how we produce the CO2. How about you guys, you both of you, did you any like proper or concrete project to fight or to you know to make a new system about concerning the sustainability in your architecture project?
Well, I think sustainability is part of almost all our new projects at the moment, to some extent. And what is now coming is that we start the sustainable process in a very early phase of the project. So that already in the first design phases, we have energy consultants, and we think about what materials we select and so forth. And I think that is a quite good way forward to make sustainability part of the system. And in that way, we can't escape it in our designs either.
I mean, as a small firm, we tend to have private clients, preferably. We do touch sustainability in all our projects. At this time, we are doing new small winter houses, or a vacation house, all made in wood. So not only the timber comes from a good harvesting, it's made in a traditional way, and the whole house is made in wood. Also, even the installation. So there is no harm for the environment in this house. But it's just one house. It's just so it's a very small contribution to the whole world.
Right, and when we think about the sustainability, we have to know what kind of rule or what kind of system is in the society. And you guys from the different countries, and I'm not architect, but like here we used to use a lot of wood before, and let's see, we don't see any wooden building now, but oh yes, it's from Portugal. This is cork. Cork, yes. And but I heard that last year or 2 years ago, Japanese government changed architectural law to how we use the wood for the architecture, right?
I heard today from a client the same thing as you said the other day, that if you import wood, it's less expensive than buying Japanese wood.
Yes. Tell me if I'm wrong. I heard that the Japanese government changed once a law to how we use the Japanese wood, because after the World War II, there's a lot of construction around Japan, and we started to use Japanese wood, and we run out Japanese wood. So to use like cheaper wood, we started import the foreign wood. But to import cheaper, we decided to not take tax anything for foreign wood. And now, maybe 60, 70 years later, we have a lot of Japanese wood, but super expensive, not used. But that's why I don't know that why, but we just changed the law, how we use the Japanese, not wood in the buildings. It's much free to use, like to make like big buildings, even using wood, and to use a lot of much more Japanese wood, I think. That's true. I don't know. Can you tell me, Joe, what it's about?
I heard. I mean, I've been here for 1 week, and two of my people I've been talking about, one of the projects we are involved in, and also another friend of mine, they are harvesting their own wood now to use in their architecture. So it is if it's just in the starting point, but something is going on.
For example, Joe, do you feel some kind of a change slightly how we can use wood for the architecture?
まあ、実際のところ建築ってやっぱり時間がかかるので2年前に変わっても実態のところとして変化してくるには結構我々のところに落ちてくるにはもうちょっと時間がかかるんですけど、基本的にでも今僕が使っている木造の建物において大体国産だと思うんですけど、そういう今やってるやつは全部そうだと思います。
The reality in our industry in architecture is that it is time intensive. So even if the rules or regulations were changed 2 years ago, it actually takes quite a bit of time before it takes effect at our end. So it can take quite a long time before those changes really come into play for us. But right now, I believe the wood building projects that I'm involved in all use Japanese wood.
And you use Japanese because it's what is the reason to use the Japanese wood for you?
いやそれを指定しているわけではないんですけど、むしろ例えば今やってるのは沖縄でできれば本当はもっと近いところ九州とかで取りたいとか、沖縄はちょっと難しいので台風があって曲がってしまうとかで、九州で取りたいものがそうじゃなくて東北のとかそういう感じに話がなってるんで、前提が日本で話されてますね。まあ僕は取り扱ってる取り扱っている木材のメーカーがそうなのかもしれないんですけど。
So I don't really specify the use of Japanese harvested wood. I've recently been involved in a project in Okinawa Prefecture, and I wanted to harvest wood close to Okinawa, so Kyushu, for example. But Okinawa is subject to quite tricky conditions. It has a lot of typhoons coming through, so it can cause a lot of wood to get bent with all the very strong gale forces. So we ended up not going with a Kyushu source. We ended up going with a Tohoku region source. But Japanese wood is generally the premise for us. Maybe that's just the case with the wood material vendor that I work with.
Thank you.
But you have to do a bend building.
でもその沖縄の調査をしたんですけど、その時に曲がった木だけを集めてる木工所とかに行って、でそれをさらに建築ではやっぱり難しいんですよね、コストもなんですけど、それを扱いづらい材料を使って器を作ったり、まあ椅子を作ったりっていう方々が出てきていて、その中から出てくる沖縄らしさみたいなものを考えている人たちもいましたね。
But we did a survey of Okinawa actually as part of this effort, and we did identify that there were some shops or factories that specifically go out and gather bent wood to use as a material. Using that in architecture is quite tricky because it's quite costly to do so, but I did find other uses that were being done, like bowls and plateware were being made, or chairs were being made from this already bent wood. So you got a very special Okinawa flavor from using that material.
Okay.
Yeah, could I continue? It's very interesting, the use of wood. We are, in fact, now in a project, the new National Museum for Finland. There we tried to use, because we had to take down the trees on the site because we're building an underground museum. So then we thought that, oh, well, now we will compensate this by using the wood to its full potential. So we are now working together with a furniture carpenter and to make furniture for the new museum using the wood on the trees on the site. And there I think it's quite interesting to respect the shapes that the tree has naturally, and that's what we're trying to do now in our new museum.
Right. And well, we can talk about like technical thing maybe, but we are now all like architects here. So, for example, last night's session, JKM and Dad, and we are talking about the human, how we have to think about how human can think, and the relation between the communication, and also what my new idea, not my, but the new idea of the sustainability. Also, we started share a lot. We maybe in the 20th century we want to possess something. We wanted to have it. But here, for example, this is kind of office. I'm sorry, but the Hackle used to have the office, but now it's a sharing place, and we share the place, and we share the idea, we share a lot of things nowadays. And what do you think the idea of sharing in your mind, or maybe in your project? Do you have some idea for that?
Well, I think it is essential that we start do that even more. I was talking to a friend of mine, one of the founders of K5 today, and he started a new business called Sanu, where he makes cottages all around Japan. And if you want to be part of this, you pay a certain fee per month, and then you're free to use any of these cottages. So, and here he told me that now he thought that everyone would do this in the weekends, but they do it in the weeks, just to go there and work from these places. And if we all would have our own summer house, as we have in Sweden, you would not have any land left in Japan. So I think they have a beautiful potential to do a great business with this. And I think with cars, I mean, of course, we don't use the cars enough by ourselves, thank God. But if we start sharing even more, it would be much less. We wouldn't harm the nature as much.
Right. How about you?
Yes, sharing space is a very good concept, and in Finland we have a long tradition of building public buildings, for example libraries, which are very democratic and open and free. And these public libraries, well, they become like living rooms for the whole community and for the whole city. And we have been working on quite many libraries in Finland. For example, in Kirkkonummi is one of the most recent libraries. And we see that when we invest in the design of these living rooms, they become very popular in the cities. And they can help to change, in fact, the city center a little bit.
Yeah, I remember when I visited like a library in Helsinki, it was tons of people, but from baby from to the elder people and everywhere, and they do what. It's not. I cannot tell that it's a library. It's just you said like living room. They are there.
Yeah, you can even do some sewing with a sewing machine in some libraries, and so they have a very wide range of different services and functions.
Right. And Joe, for example, I remember when you established your studio, you sharing. You already shared the studio with the other people, and the sharing idea is like your element or your basic thing.
そうですね。 してましたどう話を広げたらいいんだ
How come you started share the office? Because you want to just establish your studio, you want to own your studio, but you
いや
share.
ですね、ちょっと話が用意してた話とちょっと違うところから突っ込まれたまあ本当に今お二人が言ってたように今ってもう IT の時代で多分なんていうか時間でこう区切ってコントロールしてその場所をシェアして次に違う人が入ってきてっていうことができるような時代ですよね。で、今こそそうやってこうシェアする技術を僕たちは持ったんだと思うんですよ。なんですけど意外とまだやはり日本はスクラップ&ビルドして見る駅建て直してるじゃないですか。それはやはりどうしてなんだろうねっていうのがまず一つ大きな疑問としてあって、僕らはそれに対するなんていうか提言を少しでもできればいいなと思って活動している中で、やっぱり肯定っていうか肯定っていうのがすごい大事だなって思ってて、ちょっと長くなりすぎました。
So just to pick up on some of the things my two fellow panelists are saying, I think we very much are in an IT age. So we are in an age where it's possible to control and share spaces. You can, a certain person use it for a certain amount of time, that person leaves and somebody else comes in and uses that space for a different time. So we now have in our possession technology that allows us to share. But as you look around Japan, there's an awful lot of scrap and build going on. You can look at any station and they're all being rebuilt. And it's a big question for me why that is the case. So a lot of my effort is about trying to reduce all of this new building or rebuilding. But I think process or schedule is something that a great deal of importance is placed upon in Japan.
おそらく経済を回す原理がまだいまだに建設だったり土建国家っていうか、そういうところで回っているからなのかよくわからないんですけど、理由は耐震がとか、いろんな避難経路がとか、そういったいろんな災害にまつわる理由でなかなか古いものを使いこなせないっていう状況が今に続いていると思うんですよね。
And I don't know whether that's partly just because of the way our economy is structured in terms of the principles that it runs it under, in the sense that, a powerful driving force of the economy in Japan is the construction industry, and whether the citation is for seismic reasons or to have improved evacuation routes out of buildings and other disaster-related directives, it makes it very difficult to reuse what is already there.
で、その時に、やはり簡単に否定することはできるじゃないですか。この人数に対して合ってないとか、この今の世の中のニーズとずれてるとか、いくらでも言えるんですけど、やっぱり我々しなきゃいけないのは肯定、否定ではなくて肯定かなと思っていて、だから3社でシェアしてた時っていうのはある意味思う通りにいかないんですよ。他人がいるので。だけどやっぱりそれを肯定すると意外と新しい世界が見えてくるなっていうのは僕はシェアしてた時に感じたことですけど。
But it's very easy to be negative and to criticize. You can say that this doesn't meet the exact number of people, or this doesn't meet the exact needs of the world that we have at the moment. But I think it's a question of looking at it from a different perspective. I remember when I was sharing with, 3 different people sharing the same space, it doesn't always work out as well as you want it to because there are other people there. But if you can look at that positively, then there are new things that can be generated from that.
Yes, the idea of positive is super interesting, and but at the same time, when we see the actual situation we are now, it comes from the past principles who some other people made, and we have to follow that, as Joe said. We have to live with that, but if we think about the future, we have to change, or we have to make new principles. And when we talk about the future. We are not predictors, so we cannot decide. But we, as Ola said, we have to do. We can do something. We cannot change the society. We cannot make the future, but we can do something. And what you do, or you can do, or you want to do for the future?
Well, I think that we need to make the sustainable solutions something that everybody wants to do, really want to do, so that they are so good and so well designed, if it's a question of design, or functions so well that people do it automatically. And I think, I feel quite hopeful that we will find this kind of good solutions. And for example, just today we had a very inspiring morning. We visited this research center by Shimizu Corporation. It's called Novare, and there they had developed this kind of ventilation system which identified the user, so that if somebody, for example, liked it more cool, if it was too hot, then it could, by sensors, identify you. So it was kind of this smart building. So in that way, they could save energy cost and then get a building that functions even better. So I think there are out there loads of this type of very innovative and new solutions that it's going to piece by piece make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Well, I want to touch on what Tanya started with, is if we can make this change joyful, then it will be, as you just said, it will be natural to change or into something else. I think us as creative persons perhaps have a easier way of showing how we can do it, and hopefully we can encourage other people to follow. Of course, this will take a long time. We cannot change overnight. Politicians are now talking about trying to stop the global warming in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. It's very abstract, everything, and I don't even know if people understand what 1 or 2 degrees causes, but I've been to places which will disappear if this goes on, and we cannot have it like that. We have to change. We have to and we have to make it in a positive way. And if we can include people rather than being egoistic, I think we can start. It's a good start.
Great. How about Joe?
さっき最初に話したやはり指標っていうのをもうちょっとなんか共有できるようになったらいいなって思ってます。というのは一軒の古い家があってそれをそのままなんか古い状態でエネルギーを消費しながら住んでいるのが本当にいいのか、それともその新しく変えて断熱がきっちりされて建て替えた方がトータルとしていいのか、そういうことすらも僕は分かってなくて、なのでそういう正しいジャッジがある程度デザインするときにできる状態を作れたら、もうちょっとなんかこんな妙な迷い方をせずに物事を作っていけるなっていうのがまず一つ考えている。
Going back to something that I mentioned earlier about metrics and indicators, it would be good if we had something that we all shared as a common metric or a common indicator. Take an old house. Is it better to choose to just continue to live in the old house in its old condition, consuming the energy that it does, or is it better to go ahead and rebuild something new with great insulation? I don't know. And when I'm designing something, I would like something to enable me to understand what the correct judgment or what the correct decision is, rather than being left unsure when I'm in the process of creating something.
And for example, Finland and Sweden did that. We talk like it's much more developed country in the ecological way. And do you have any hint to, like, for us Japanese, like what you talk about the indicate measurement or metrics, efficient way to how like efficiently it works. あれ違う助けて機能的にそういう指標が動くシステムみたいな、なんかこういわゆる他の国々で何かそういういいシステムみたいなのがあるかどうか聞きして。
So the question really is, in your experience of Nordic countries and your practices, do you have something good that you could suggest to us, an effective system, an efficient system where those kind of metrics and indicators works? Do you have something already in the Nordic countries?
The answer is no. I have not heard about this. This is the first time, and I think it would be a brilliant solution for people to understand how much they affect in daily life. We have in the past had a Swedish guy that came up with the Celsius system degrees. So maybe we can find someone that can do this. I don't know myself, but let's spread the word and come up with something. It's a very good idea, I think.
Yes, it must be much more easier to predict or count the economic effects of either tearing down or building something new, but to really measure the sustainable footprint is more difficult. But I was thinking that, well, in a way, when thinking about the future, perhaps we need to change also our concept of aesthetics in a way, so that we get an aesthetics where we appreciate the sustainable dimensions. So more worn down aesthetics, right, perhaps, or
if materials age in a nice way, they become even more attractive, in my eyes at least. And as you say, if we can educate people to appreciate that things they can get old as we get old. I mean, it is beautiful to see an old-aged man or woman still being proud and happy about themselves. So, and that is the same with a building. When I was in Hakodate, I saw two projects. One was 150-year-old wooden house, intact, in a very beautiful old condition. But it was used as a more or less storage, and there were 4 people working in this huge space. Beautiful. And next door was an old bank building, awful. It had aged in a really bad way. But both have potential, but in a different ways. But the old house only needed some cleaning, and it's going to be beautiful.
And as you said, like, education is super important. How we can, but the word is education is a little bit tough word. For example, if I understand in Japanese way, education, we have to learn something first. So somebody must teach us.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
but before that, ask yourself, like, we need the joyfulness. So how we can be curious about the society, about the nature? It's continue to the.
It's your journalist that should do this.
Oh, yes, that's true.
We can,
Yeah, basically, I'm super curious. That way, I all the time questioning, and I can, as a journalist, I can talk with you, like with you guys. So it's my point of view. It's super important to talk with people, like we just talk and we
And listen to people.
of course. So I would like to listen you. If you want to talk something, if there's anything about the question, some comments, we are here. So we started to have this discussion, all of us, maybe now. If somebody, a lot. So from you, what should, no, if you got mic, you got to start. So.
Speaking of these indicators before on, I guess CO2 mainly, in Europe, like we have carbon taxes, right? And Japan has still not implemented a carbon tax. So I was curious what you think how a carbon tax might impact design and architecture.
well,
You can.
I hope it will change the architecture so that we have more carbon neutral or carbon free designs. And in fact, well, our solutions and buildings, they tend to follow the money. So in that sense, to have a kind of financial, what do you say? Carrots would make the change more quick.
Mm.
So part of the reason why I ask is because, Joe, you mentioned the dilemma between tearing something old down or building something new. One of the issues with the carbon tax is that when you're building something new, you obviously have to pay the money on the materials because it's newly extracted. So this is why I'm asking you. So then you come to another dilemma now of how, then that hopefully should encourage renovation if you have a carbon tax. And I know at least in Denmark, we have a lot of companies doing these kind of carbon accounting measures. So it's not my impression that it's difficult to get an understanding of how much carbon emissions that are associated with building certain things. So I was just curious about
that. You're asking to Joe?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell me exactly what were you asking exactly?
I can specify. So do you think a carbon tax would change something for Japan? Because that means if you're trying to build something new, you will have to pay more money on new materials. So what do you think about a carbon tax?
タックスに興味があるわけ、ごめんなさい。タックスに興味があるわけではないですけど、お金がかかるとなると必死に多分理由をちゃんと突き止めようとするので、それで今分かってないことが分かれば、それはちょっと新たな視点を持てるのでいいなというふうに思ってますけど。
So I have no specific interest one way or another with regard to a carbon tax, but when money is needed, when there is a cost involved, you become very focused on every reason as to why that cost is being driven. So it's an unknown for me right now. I would need to make that a known for me, and I think that would bring new perspectives to what I do.
Okay, thank you. And the next, what pullover? gentleman.
Can I just say a little short thought that if paying for using carbon is the answer, it will only help a little, because that it will only be the ones that can afford to build, and I'm not sure if they are the right ones to follow, the ones that has the money. It is a dilemma, I think. Of course it's good, but at the same time, I'm not sure if it's going to help.
Right. Thank you. Sorry,
大丈夫です
gentleman.
か？はい。ありがとうございます。僕がちょっと聞きたいのは、日本でいう工芸っていう考えがあると思うんですけど、英語でいうクラフトで、今それのサステイナブルにおける影響というか可能性についてちょっと聞きたいなと思ってます。例えば先ほどもその長坂さんがおっしゃってた沖縄の木を曲げてることで、曲がってることでそれがまた新しいその器になったりっていう可能性があると思ってて、なんかそういうものがこれからどういうふうに建築とかデザインにおける業界で可能性を広げていくのかっていうのについて聞きたいです。
Thank you.
で、北欧だとそれこそフィンランドだと自分のなんだろうな、素材に対してすごい尊重していて、それこそ素材を手触りとかも尊重しながら自分の家を自分で手を加えていくっていうなんかクラフト的な精神がすごい宿ってるなと思ってて、なんかそういうものが日本にも伝わっていくのがいいのかなとかちょっと自分なりには思ってたんですけど、皆さんが思う可能性についてちょっと伺いたいです。
Thank you. So my question is that in Japan we have this word koge, which I think translates as crafts in English. So I'm just wondering about what might be the impact or potential of sustainability from that perspective. Jo-san mentioned earlier about the trees being bent in Okinawa, which might lead to new things being made. He mentioned that. So from architectural design perspective, I'm wondering what kind of potential or possibilities you sense from that from a crafts perspective. I know that in the Nordic countries, and specifically I'm familiar that in Finland there is great, immense respect for the materials which are used, including how it feels to the touch, so that if somebody's building a home, they like to be very directly involved in that building process. So there's almost a spirit of craftsmanship, and I thought it would be interesting to have that better spread here in Japan as well. And I'm just wondering what kind of potential or possibilities you see from that perspective.
Yes, well, I think that the good craftsmanship and very high quality products, it makes us, it creates this circle of good where we take care of the environment and the objects better when they are carefully designed and we appreciate them. So that gives a longer lifespan to both objects and the environment. So I think that is, well, it's a key factor to have longer life cycles and more sustainable products.
But when I hear that you say that you don't have crafts in Japan, I see crafts quite a lot in my work, being involved in various projects here in Japan. And when I was a student, I was traveling around Japan, and I mentioned to you, I ended up in Ise, where there is an area of temples, and every 20 years, a new copy of the old building is placed next to the existing one. The 20-year-old building is deassembled and been brought to another part of Japan, erected again to be used in a different way. And so they start to copy the copy, and they have been doing this for many hundred years. So they still learn the techniques that they've had for hundreds of years. And I think by doing this, they educate how the skills of how to build old wooden houses in Japan. And I that is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, to see the two houses next to each other before the one that was going to be disassembled was still there, both of them. It's beautiful.
And I think when we talk about the craft, it's not only the handmade thing. We use all the time a tool, some kind of tool, and the tool developed. And in the digital world, the idea of craft or the spirit of craft lives inside. And it's all we have to think. It's all the time man runs something. If we think about something and we can decide how to use it, how to use the tool, how to develop the tools, and also I think there is kind of a new craft mind. For example, Joe has a lot of experimental project, how you use the machinery by your hand. Even though you are not carpenter, you are designer, architect, but you try to create something by your hand and machine. How, right? Can you tell me about your project with the machinery, like the wood turning thing you did, right?
目まぐるしく話が展開しますね。
It's a very fast-changing topic of conversation in the room.
どこから話して自分の話をしたらいいですか。コロナの間に非常に時間が皆さんあったと思うんですけど、その頃に普段は僕はデスクトップで仕事をすることがほとんどなんですけど、ちょっと時間に余裕があったんで昔やってたような手作りをしようっていうことで、そのミラノのと、ベネチアビエンナーレと両方出展の機会に、手を動かしてものを作って、そのアイデアを展示に展開しようっていうことをやったんですけど、それをどんな話をしたらいいんですか。彼の質問がクラフトの可能性みたいな。じゃあそこの話を言うと、すいません、さっきオラが言ってたけど、本当にその日本は少ないっていう認識のことを言いました。さっき言ってないですよね。いや、思えるけど実際ある。いや、すごいたくさんありますよね。で、多分そのヨーロッパはどちらかというと生産性でこう切り捨てられていってしまっているものが日本には山ほどまだ残っていて、おそらく多分10もないそのこう陶器の焼き窯とかがもしかしたら日本だと何千、下手すりゃ何万あるかもしれないぐらいあるじゃないですか。でそれがなんかどうして残ってるのかはちょっとすごい深い話だと思うんですけど、それは武器になるなと思っていて、一周回って今世の中探しても世界でなかなかそういう場所ないので、だからみんな外国のその彼らが日本に来て家具を作るとかって喜んでるのも多分そういう技術を持ってる国がもはや世界中であんまりなくなっている。でそれを求めて世界中から仮木もそうだし有田のやつもそうだし、みんなそうやってその集まってきてますよね。であれはすごい財産ですが、今目の前でどんどんなくなろうと、世代代わりでなくなろうとしていることに対して我々はどうアプローチするのかっていうのはやっぱり考えなきゃいけないなと思っているんですけど。
一回。
So during COVID, we all had a lot of time on our hands, and the vast majority of my work life is spent normally at a desk, but I had some time, so I kind of went back to trying to make things by hand along the lines of efforts that I've done in the past to exhibit at the Milan and Venice Biennale. But the question was about the potential of crafts. I think Ola was mentioning a moment ago about, was there not a lot of crafting in Japan? You felt that there was a lot of crafting. I think the question implied that there was still a lot of craft and craftsmanship in Japan. In fact, a lot is still left in Japan because Europe has been driven a lot by the pursuit of productivity. And I think as a result, you've lost quite a lot of craft, spirit of craft work, which maybe we haven't lost in Japan. We still have mountains of that kind of spirit and thinking. Whereas, for example, a ceramic firing oven, there might be a few tens in some countries left. In Japan, you can probably find thousands, tens of thousands around the country if you looked. And the reasons for this are very deep, but I think this is actually a weapon in our arsenal because you can look around the world and you simply won't find these techniques and craftsmanship like that. A lot of visitors from overseas will come to Japan and find great joy in the furniture that can be made here. And that's partly because of those techniques which still exist here. So whether it's arita ware or whatever it happens to be in Japan, it's a great asset to the world that Japan is able to offer. And the challenge we face now is that we may lose a lot of these techniques and crafting skills and craft skills because of the change in generations as the population ages and young people are not taking it on. And we have to seriously look at how to deal with that.
Thank you. 大丈夫でしょうか、今はい。Are there anyone who want to? Yes.
Thank you. I have a question about urban design. So more and more people live in densely populated cities, but density doesn't necessarily lead to closeness. Is it possible, or how is it possible, to design urban areas or communities that produce not only population density, but foster a feeling of community and shared responsibility, also regarding the environment? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oi. No, for me, this is utopia. I mean, we don't work with urban planning, but as a human being, I could only say that if there are lungs in the cities where people can meet outside of our architecture, in parks or in other areas where it's more free to be, then that's a good start. I think we have had a will of cutting down or taking away these places quite a lot in the last 100 of years, and I think we need to bring them back into the cities, and they will come if we just let nature come. It will come.
Yes, I think you're on a good track there, Ola. And this connects to the discussion about biodiversity and how we could preserve that for future generations. Also, I think that the city has a role also there to provide green spaces where the biodiversity can grow. But I think about the dense cities, of course, they reduce the need for infrastructure, and in that sense make the city more efficient in a sustainable thinking. But perhaps we could also have networks that connect people and services as a part of the solution.
Do you have any idea, Joe?
まあ我々教育でなんて言うんだろう、勉強したことでいろいろ役に立ってることって意外と実は少なくて、その英語教育もそうですけど数学もそうで、結構その時間でなんか個人個人に勉強させるっていう時代を僕らは成長期で育っていって、 その間もうちょっとみんなとこう会話するとか、そこまで重要じゃない勉強をたくさんしたような気がするんですよね、デスクトップで一人だけで。でその時間をもうちょっとこう切り分けてコミュニケーションをすることをもっとした方が良かったのかなって、そういうことをもっと普通にコミュニケーション能力が高ければ、まあ、もうちょっといろんなことが実際変わってくる、人が変われば建築も変わると思うんで、やっぱり人の問題の方が結構大きいかなというふうには日本で思ってますけどね。
So I think in the case of Japan, I know through going through the education system, I learned many things which in reality are surprisingly not as helpful as I thought they would be at the time, whether it was English or whether it was maths. And there was a lot of time spent alone learning and studying during the period of rapid economic growth in Japan. If only, I think now, there'd been more time for conversation instead of the less important sitting alone at a desk and doing studying, which is what actually happened. If that we'd had the time to develop communication skills, perhaps things would be better now. If we had better communication skills, then that might have changed we as a people here in Japan. I think that if people change, the architecture changes. So I think in many respects, the issue lies with people rather than the architecture.
I totally agree. That's a good point. And you have one beautiful thing in Japan that I bring with me back to Europe and back to Sweden, and that is that you have a beautiful way of saying hello when you meet someone. You notify that someone is here. When I come home, I do the same, and no one understands what I'm doing. That is a very good start to say hello to people, even people that you don't know.
Good. Hello. Okay. We still have time. Yes. Yeah, please.
ちょっと働く人のちょっとサステナビリティという点でちょっとお聞きしたいんですけれども、例えば今日本では職人さんが不足していたり、コストが高騰して非常に建築をするのが非常に厳しくなっているという実情があります。で、それを回避する方法として、例えばその個別会ではなくて一般会のようなもの、例えば誰にでもできるような方法を取るとか、要は個人の負担を減らしていくことで働く人の環境を改善するとか、そういう方法っていうのはあると思うんですけれども、我々建築家はそれとは一方で非常に個別会で特殊なものを作って非常にクリエイティブなものを作っていこうということをした時に非常にそこに矛盾する問題が生まれたりすると思うんですね。でちょっとお尋ねしたいのは例えばスウェーデンとかフィンランドもそういった職人さんの不足ですとかコストの高騰みたいなそういう問題があるのか、あるいはあったとしたらそれをブレイクスルーしてものづくりをしてクリエイティブなものづくりをしていくための方法として実践していることあるいは考えていることがあったら教えてください。
So my question is about sustainability in the context of people who are working people. So one of the things that we face in Japan as a construction industry challenge is a shortage of skilled artisans. We also face extremely high costs. And it would be great if we weren't so reliant on those experts and specialisms, those individuals who have these skills, and we were able to do things that just about anybody could pick up and do. And then we don't burden these individuals with those specific skills if there's a way of improving our working methods to do that. But there is a bit of a kind of there's a bit of a gap there, because as architects we're highly specialized and we create as very highly specialized individual experts, but we still have this challenge at the other end of the industry where we're placing great burdens on a very shortage of resource, on a very limited resource. So my question is, in Sweden and in Finland, do you also have challenges with shortages in artisan resources and extremely high costs associated with that? If you do, or if you have had those, what are your methods that you've identified to break through those challenges in terms of being able to still realize creative manufacturing with craftsmanship, but getting past those challenges?
We have the same problems in Sweden, if you say it's a problem. I think the new generation, as Joe was mentioning, they are not as willing to do these kind of quite hard and I mean, they do the same thing all over and over again. So there is a lack of craftsmanship also when it comes to blacksmith and to welding buildings, and it does make the cost of making buildings higher. We have the same problem, so I don't know. I don't have a solution for that at this time. But we were earlier talking about hoping that your work is joyful, and perhaps we need to change even their way of working, and so it becomes more positive, to make them come back, or someone else to take that job.
Yes, we have had also in Finland quite a lot of challenges this last year, especially due to the difficult situation in the world. Well, of course, there was the COVID and then the Ukrainian, the war in Ukraine, which affected quite a lot the building industry in Finland, both as we were used to import quite a lot of building material from these countries, and and then of course the inflation, which has brought up the costs of building. But another challenge that we have in Finland is that our country is quite small country, so we don't have that many, for example, experts of all the different kind of building techniques and industry. So, for example, now we just learned during this autumn and last year, quite a lot of construction companies have gone bankrupt in Finland. And for example, we learned a couple of weeks ago that one wooden construction company, which is expert on doing this CLT wooden structures for quite difficult buildings, such as office buildings in wood, they went bankrupt. So then suddenly there are not so many alternatives. We don't have the knowledge. So, but I don't have a solution either to this.
Do you have a solution, Pereric?
なんか一つ思うのは一つ違いはあるかなと思ってて、やっぱヨーロッパ行くと同じ一つの工事が関わってる人が少ないなって思うんですよね。日本っていきなりまずは安全係みたいなおじさんたちがこう3、4人ぐらいこう立ってですごい人数が一つの工事に多いなって思ってて、あれなんとか改善できないんですかねっていう。日本の多分人の一つの仕事量に対してのかかる人の人数を変えるだけでも日本はまだ改善の余地があるのかなって思ってるんですけど。
So one thought I have, one difference that I've experienced is that when I've traveled to Europe and I go to a job site, there are quite simply just fewer people at the job site. In Japan, as soon as you start a construction site, you first of all start with 3 or 4 guys, safety guys, who are just seem to be standing around and doing safety. And there are vast numbers of people compared to European job sites. So I think that's an area we could improve. So for a single job, a single project, if we could resource that a little more slimmer in Japan, then I think there's room to change and room to improve that in Japan.
よろしいでしょうか? Okay, thank you very much. And I think time has come. We want to talk more, but well, we have to close this session. But we're gonna stay a little bit here. So if you want to talk privately, you can just tell directly. So now I want to pass my microphone to the ambassador.
Thank you so much. My name is Pereric Högberg. I'm the Swedish ambassador here in Japan. What an impossible task to summarize this very exciting talk. But we came in to this afternoon thinking about design and sustainability. And I pick up at least 3 new words apart from that you really have been emphasizing. That is share. The word share came up many times, how we as humans need to share things, and also future, how we look into the future and change. And I've been thinking about change a lot since I took this position more than 4 years ago, and very often from us, the Nordics, comes the idea of change. And very often here in Japan, I feel that the notion of change does not perhaps have as much of a positive measure as we allude to it, that change is naturally good. But then I think you are architects and designers, and very often you are a little bit of revolutionaries, and I heard that as well during your talks, the footprint, the environmental impact we make. So it's a bit questioning the whole idea of the way we live, economic growth, GDP growth. You talked about productivity has become so important for us, so we are perhaps losing things. And I like that. I like that you dare to be a bit revolutionary. And I think the beauty of some of the Nordic design and Nordic architecture that we have when we think sustainably is that we do it on a systematic level, holistic level. And I heard that here as well. It's not only the products, it's not only the individual house or the individual thing. We need to think systematically and holistically about design and sustainability in the future. And I'm quite proud that we at the Swedish Embassy, and I also know the Norwegian Embassy in Tokyo, we are just about to renovate our embassies, and we are not knocking it down. We have quite a big building, more than 10,000 square meters, 9 stories, and the Japanese constructors that looked into it, they really recommended to knock it down and build a new one. But we felt it's cultural heritage in this as well, so we want to keep it. It's expensive, but it's important to renovate. Thank you so much for the University of Creativity, for the Nordic Innovation House, and not least to our panelists, Ola, Freya, Joe, and Hisashi-san for helping us out. And let me finish off as the Danish ambassador, my colleague, said in the beginning, that in the Nordic countries, design is a part of life. And I also think this is what we experience here in Japan. Design and architecture is also a part of life. So I think the Nordic countries, the Hokuos, and Japan, we could really do a lot of good, not only for our own societies, but for the whole world, if we increase the cooperation between Japan and the Nordics when it comes to also design, architecture for the future. So let's keep on doing that. Thank you very much.